Hey guys, I'm Nath Martyn, the Whisky Scribe, and this week I'm thrilled to be taking you on a tour of Stillmaker Sons Distillery in Montville of the Sunshine Coast Hinterland, Queensland. We were honoured to be invited to this distillery by Mike and Sandy, as even though they've been crafting spirit and laying down barrels for over 4 years, they have not yet released a whisky and the distillery is not even open to the public. So this really was an exclusive private distillery tour that we were able to experience and share with you. We spent over 5 hours at the distillery and had a great time with Mike and Sandy, but it meant we have a lot of footage to sort through, so this video is part 1 of 2. Also, I did wear a mic, but we lost some of my audio if anyone thinks I'm being unusually quiet. Which is fine because the video is really about the distillery and what Mike has to say. We've just popped in some subtitles where I've asked questions. Anyway, hope you enjoy the tour. For now, I'll let Mike do the talking. So yeah, if you could tell me, like, what was the deciding point that got you to make that decision to start making a distillery?
Right, so the deciding point was, I was always in the background of my mind, I was going to do a distillery, but we're out at a place called Thargomindah. Now Thargo gets, in the summer about 55, 58 degrees, and I was listening to Casey Overeem on the ABC, and Casey's a tradesman like myself, and he said, the best part about having a distillery is I walk to work. My distillery's in the backyard. It's fantastic. And here was I was in my truck and I was heading out to Inaminka to do an emergency breakdown for the council, and the temperature was 55 degrees. I had a 12 to 14 hour return trip where I was going on the one day. And I remember saying to Sandy when I got back, I'm going to take Casey's advice. That's what I wanted. So that was the point where this idea of a distillery happening was going to happen, and if it was going to happen, it was going to be on my own property where I could go from my house to the distillery in a short 30-metre walk, which is what I achieved. And so that was pretty important for me, and that was the seeds of me thinking, yep, this distillery is going to happen, because I'd been working out west for a number of years, and it was pretty harsh out there, and we used to do a lot of work in the desert country, and it wasn't uncommon for the temperature to be 50 plus. So this is a much better environment. So we buy our grain in from a single source paddock. For the first 2 years, 2.5 years, it was from Tassie, and then we had another place in Nil in northern Victoria, and it's all signature grain stuff from Joe White. And so what we do is we set up our auger over there, and we'll set that over here. Yeah, we obviously lift these up and we have the auger going in here. I control my water with the touch of a button over there, so I put the right temperature in here. The wort stays in here probably for about, I'd say roughly 6 to 7 hours, and gets transferred into our fermenters here, and where the yeast is added, and that sits in there for 7 days. So 7 days is our fermentation times. So in that 7 days, we have 2 fermentations happen. It's common here to have our specific gravity about 1084, which is unheard of, which is roughly 10 point something % alcohol. The sugars are all eaten up right down to below 1 when we get our specific gravity. And after 7 days, in these little beauties here, we transfer over here to our still. And what we do here, we work out that we do 1 wort volume to suit 2 of these runs here with the faints, and we get it. From that we get our spirit run. So our spirit run is done once every 9-10 days. So it's a bit of a long journey. So it's not slow, So what I can tell you is also our water we use here is pretty special. It's sourced from roughly 300 feet in the ground in basalt. It's basalt filtered, and we use that wort exclusively here, and it's very, very soft. Probably in the range of things, it's probably one of the softest waters in Australia. I've done a comparison with Tassie, and it's much softer than theirs, I can tell you that much. So that's something that's pretty keenly sort of viewed when you're making your product, that there's only 3 products in whisky, so they've got to be the best of everything. So the water's pretty good here. Yeah, the grain's pretty good, and fermentations are nice and long, so there's no excuse not to make a good whisky. Yeah.
So. Now, you mentioned also at one point that all of these are all made in Australia.
Yeah, everything here is made in Australia by Burns Welding in Griffith. Done a great job. That mash tun was specially made for us after being down in Victoria and helping a fellow distiller down there where he was bending over in his waistline trying to clean out the mash. And I said to Mark, I don't want that. I want something I can hardly bend my back and rake it out. And so that's what he designed for me, which was great. Yeah, it was fantastic. It's nice and easy to take out. Yeah, we've got chilled jackets around here too. If the temperature gets too hot, we can chill them with our chiller. Cold water, about 12 degrees, passes around them, circulates around them and cools the wash.
Now, the design of your still, because I understand the name of Stillmaker Sons Distillery, that comes from your grandfather. He used to make stills down in Melbourne.
That's right.
Did any of that family design go into the design of this still?
That's a good question. I'd have to say probably no, but in saying that, my grandfather made a still back in the early 80s, late 70s, which I was a part of and saw it all getting made. I was pretty taken back by what came off it, because I really knew not much of the science at the time. I was only a young bloke, probably in my early 20s, late teens. And when we got this made, I knew a little bit about stills, and one of the things was, if you come and look at it a bit closely, was this hemisphere on here. That's sort of, we made sure it had that because we wanted to get a very clean spirit. So, you know, it has to work pretty hard to get up that. And it's, if you look at here when it's boiling, especially when it's, you know, around the 90 plus degrees, you can see it just rains down. It's raining all back down inside here. It's trying to force its way up, so it gets cleaned many times. And the result is that we get a very sweet, clean new make. Basically, Burnsy designed this for me, and I gave him a few parameters, but basically it's one of his designs. So, and all this set up too on the wall here, you know, I asked him, you know, how can we do this and that, and he came back with this design, and I just fell in love with it. You know, it was fantastic. We'd only, from the wort, you know, it's there about 65, 66 degrees, and it's one run through it, and it's in there at 22. You know, it's fantastic. It's really good setup. So, you know, we had our teething problems like every place does, and yeah, it was great installing it ourselves. So you got to know exactly what went on. It was really funny. We had a really funny event happen here. We were putting all these fermenters here together, and we couldn't get it to drain. And so I'm going, what's going on here? Can't get it to drain. So we took this valve off, and there was a pair of jocks stuck in there. It was pretty funny. So I rang up Burnsy and I said to him, mate, you know, what's going on? He goes, oh no, he said, we usually have rags in here to cool the well down. He said, obviously, he goes, it wasn't my pair of jocks, but it was someone's jocks. And so, yeah, we had a really massive laugh about that. We pulled it out and off she went. But we didn't see it in there when we put it together. It must have been stuck up the tube there a bit. But it was really good it was really fun putting it together. It went together like a Meccano set. If you can see here, I mean, we gave Burnsy, my wife actually did a very, very detailed drawing, and she's good at doing that sort of stuff. And you can see, like, it's right to the edge. Like, everything's just precise. Everything's just so precise, you know. You shut that door down, there's only about a 50mm gap between that and the pipe. Like, it's all, and it's a very difficult space to work with. You can see the ceilings, you know, they're 2.4s, so everything, and they've got all these beams and everything everywhere, and everything just fitted in perfect. And you know, we had to design a way to try and get it in. And it was Sandy, my wife, came up, she said, how are we going to get this stuff in? I said, oh, I don't really know, because you can't get a lifter. So Sandy had this great idea. She said, why don't we buy these little dollies? And we bought these little square dollies, and we actually jacked up all the equipment, because this weighs a few hundred kilos, put the dollies underneath them, just wheeled them all into place, and it just went like clockwork. So it was great, you know, it all fitted in perfect. So yeah, I couldn't be happy with the stuff. I mean, it's a real big nod to the Australian manufacturers that make this stuff. It's, you know, we've been doing this for 5 years, and there's nothing gone wrong. It's just, and it's done, you know, it just hasn't stopped, and everything's just spot on. So it's been pretty good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah. So what happens to the grain after we're done with it? So on grain day, we'll mash day, we'll take all the grain out of here, put it on our trailer outside, and across the road there's you've got a farmer who has about, I don't know, 100 head of cattle, and it all goes to him. And then when we've done our washes, the pot ale all goes to him. So he gets about, I don't know, 800 kilos of grain a week and about 2,000 litres of pot ale a week. So the cows love it. They just, you know, it's really good to see them. I go over there and they can see me truck from a kilometre away and they all come racing up to the receptacles. And it's a really nice thing to see because it's not going to waste, it's going to a good. The cattle love it. They're enjoying it, so all of that goes to get used up. It doesn't get, you know, doesn't go to a dump or a tip or anything like that. And also, I've got 60 solar panels on the roof that actually look after all the electrical consumption of this distillery, which is great. So it doesn't really cost me that much to run it because it's all zero basically. Even our bags that our grain go into, they go to a farmer up in Gympie who uses them to collect the noxious seeds because it's all plastic lined. And all the wash down water goes to our garden. So, you know, when we wash everything down, that all goes to our gardens. The chiller system I've got, I know some distilleries, they use about 30,000 litres a day. They get wasted. We have basically the same 60 litres. It's a closed loop that gets recycled every day. And because it's airtight, it can never get any diseases in the pipe or anything like that. So we don't waste any water for cooling either, so it's all great. That was something my grandfather made in 1953. He was a tinsmith, so that's all handmade. Yeah, he made that. He made 3 of them in 1953, and I was very lucky to get one. That's all stainless steel, all handmade, the whole lot of it. I don't want to sort of use it. I just want to leave it there and look at it. It just reminds me of my grandfather. He was such a talented bloke, you know. He really was. He was really good with his hands. He'd make anything. And my father was the same.
On that, it's probably also worth acknowledging, I think the name of your still.
Yes.
Valentino, that's your grandfather's name,
isn't it? Yep, Valentino, yep.
So you've named the still for your grandfather?
Yes, I have, yep. Yeah, he'd be pretty proud today if he saw what we'd done because he was a very mild and humbled and meek fellow. He'd very shy, but if he knew what me and my wife had done, he would just be over the moon. He'd just be so happy. I was working at down in Victoria at a not Victoria, Yallourn, as a wind turbine technician on a wind farm down there. And anyway, I had to extend it 6 weeks down there. Anyway, I had 3 days off in Canberra, and I met this guy down there, and at the cafe. He wanted to know all about wind farms, and I was talking to him. I said, and after about 10 minutes, I said, "Oh, what do you do?" He goes, "I'm the chief winemaker of McWilliams." I said, "Really? I've been trying to find you for the last 12 months." So that was really good. That was really exciting. And he gave me his number and everything, and I actually ended up getting 20 puncheons that had held port or sherry in them for over 10 years. Very, very lucky. These same barrels were going to people like Sullivan Cove and people like that. Very, very lucky. Extremely lucky, and have got a great relationship with that guy. These darker ones have had port rum in there. Port in them for 40 years plus, all of them. And then they had rum in them for 6 years, I think, and that was the rum that won the best dark age rum in the world from Bundaberg Rum. Very lucky, we got 50 of those. So we have a combination of dry sherry, cream sherry, port rum.
That's an amazing advantage because the fortified wine barrels are in such high demand,
yes,
but they're in such low production because there's just fewer and fewer port drinkers these days.
That's right.
And you've seen it in Scotland where they're finding it harder to get the sherry and the port casks.
Yep.
As a new distillery that hasn't even released its first whiskey yet, to be able to get hold of those, that's an amazing advantage.
Very lucky. It was a fluke actually, and it wasn't when I was down in Canberra and working down here on the wind turbines. Like I didn't think anything of it. It was just I'd done 4 weeks of work down there, and the manager said, "Can you stay another 2 weeks?" And I really didn't want to. I said, "Look, I'll stay another 2 weeks provided I have 3 days off." And I rang my wife up and I said, "Fly down and we'll go and have 3 days in Canberra." And that's how I met the guy, just as a fluke. University Cafe actually. It was amazing. I just met this guy there just out of the blue. And brilliant barrels. We'll probably get 3 runs out of these barrels. They'll be good for a third fill. They're just amazing. They're about that thick. And these are the same. These are very thick barrels, these port rums. Very lucky to get them. They were all earmarked for 3 distilleries down in Tassie. He said, "Look, it's all too hard. Do you want to buy them? I said, yeah, I'll buy them. I said, how many can I have? She said, as many as you want, so I'll take 50. So I took 50. So yeah, so that's very, very lucky. So we have a cooper, Dave Schmieder, who's been a very big integral part of our distillery process. Dave has made, well, when I say Dave and Jason Schmieder, you can see Jason's name in it. These guys have been, everything's been hand coopered. And what I love about these guys is they do everything traditionally. Most coopers in Australia don't do what these guys do. They actually start a fire with oak. They don't use gas. So there's a big difference, and it's coming. I believe it's coming through in our whiskey taste. So Dave does everything, and he does it with all the old tools. It reminds you a little bit of my grandfather, even though he's only about 5 years older than me. Everything he's got is old school, like all the old shavers and planers and everything, chisels and that, and he does everything by hand. There's Dave, there's Jason, and Dave's son, Laurie, the three of them, and Laurie's probably in his late 20s, all from the same cloth, you know, they just do everything just really, really good. So they've done all my barrels, and they'll always be involved with the barrels. You know, if I need to get some more, and I've just got another 3 barrels now. I actually got them from Tassie. Most of the barrels, all the barrels have been sourced up here. And they're all French oak. Most of them are French oak, which is fantastic. And that's why you see all these little leaks on them, because French oak is notorious for leaking. It's very porous. The oak is very porous. It's not like American oak. Yeah, I call that, well, Dave calls it a wheat. So it's like a seep, yes. A wheat. And it's like a human scab. You shouldn't touch it, because if you rub that, the possibility of it leaking is great. So I remember Dave saying to me, don't touch it, just leave it like it is. And you can see a lot of them are like that. You know, they've all worked hard, and some have actually coming through the top too. You know, it's like it's a good sign. It's a really good sign when you see that happening. I think we have 4 original American oaks in here that had bourbon in them, that had wine in them, then had port in them for, you know, a long time. So yeah, so there's a bit of mixture over there, but we're really happy with the results. It's been great, and it's 5 years since we started making all this stuff, and that's the other thing, you know, I didn't tell you, all these here. If you go outside there, you'll see they've all rusted and broken down. We've actually restored all these. They've had 4 coats of paint in them. They've all been stripped down to the bare metal. We got these from Mac Williams, so when they brought all our barrels up from down at Griffin Way, Hamwood Way there, they actually brought, one of the B doubles was full of these. I got 55 of these. So they've been a massive job. We've had to get all these to suit our sealing space here. And Sandy, my wife, she's done a lot of it, probably 50-60% of the work on these. Like, it's been a massive job. So we haven't, you know, it's not on timber, it's actually proper shelving. And this shelving's like, I think they're about 50-60 years old, this stuff. It's really old. This was filled on the 21st of the 2nd, 20. So it's 3 years old already. 3 years and about 4 months. Yep.
We hope you enjoyed the first part of this exclusive tour of the Stillmaker Sons Distillery. Mike did pull some whiskey directly from the barrel so we could do a tasting of this aging spirit. Whiskey in fact, as it has been in the barrel for over 3 years, but you'll have to check out part 2 to see how that went. Make sure to subscribe so you can catch that one. If you enjoyed this video, give it a like, check out the Stillmaker Sons social media accounts, and you can also head to their website to sign up for a notification of their first whiskey release. But for now, enjoy what's in your glass and slange.
Yeah, you'd be pretty proud today if you saw what we'd done, because he was a very mild and humbled and meek fellow. He'd very shy, but if he knew what me and my wife had done, he would just be over the moon. He'd just be so happy.